Hey everybody, Derek from Mac Gaming here with another video. Thanks for stopping by. Today I bring FrostPunk. Now this game was originally released in 2018 for Microsoft Windows, later released in 2019 for the Xbox and PlayStation 4, and finally, recently actually in 2021 it was released for macOS. Now the version we're seeing here today isn't the macOS version. It's actually the Windows version that's available on the Epic Store. Now I'm emulating this through the Heroic Launcher in addition to a crossover bottle. Now, I've seen other YouTubers such as Mr. Mac Wright and Andrew Tsai do their own reviews on the Mac OS version of the game, on the M1 Mac, obviously. But, you know, I didn't really seem that appealed by the performance that they were achieving on those systems. So, all in all, I decided to give it a run through a layer of emulation, through crossover, actually, and to just, you know, give it a shot. I have already played this game on Xbox One. It's actually a very fun and entertaining game. It's actually, you know, difficult because, well, you know, if you've played this game, you already know, and if you haven't, well, it's an RTS, strategy, survival, and, you know, everything is bound just to go wrong. Anyways, that said, as you can see here on screen right now, the game is running at a resolution of 720p. And the thing is that the game can go higher, like you can play at 1080p. I've tried multiple resolutions, but there's one thing that doesn't seem to change at all, and that is the temperature. Now, for some odd reason, VSync isn't working properly. The good thing is that the game allows you to set different resolutions with different refresh rates. So for example, here in this specific, what we're seeing here on screen, the resolution is set at 720p, as I just said, and a refresh rate of 24 Hertz. However, the game is running at around 35 to 40 frames per second. Do take into account that QuickTime slightly reduces the amount of FPS that we're getting in about 10 to 15%. And the weird thing is that even though the game is running at its lowest resolution, at its lowest graphical settings and at 720p, the frame rate still goes really high. Like you can easily achieve 60-70 frames per second on this game, and it doesn't really matter. So the thing is that even like I tried to lower the graphics, I tried to adjust the resolution to drop that temperature because, you know, as I'm saying, you know, very often, I usually say that 90 degrees, 80, 88, 89 degrees isn't safe for the M1 Mac because, well, obviously, if you're going to play for extended periods of time, we don't know if this will cause any premature damage on the SoC, you know, in time. However, I usually try, like when I do PlayStation 3 emulation, when I try other games, even if they're crossover, parallels, other type of emulators, I usually just try to keep those temperatures below 80 degrees or at most 80 degrees so that, you know, the system doesn't tend to suffer as much. However, here there was no way to get that temperature to drop. I did see, you know, about 45 to 60 minutes into the game, the temperatures, they did go down to around 84, 85 degrees. But, you know, it doesn't really make a difference. Like, it's running 85, sometimes it goes all the way up to 92. And keeping that in mind, those temperatures are pretty high. However, if I leave the frame rate unlocked and I bump up the resolution to 1080p, the game is easily giving me 50, 60, 70 frames per second. Now, we don't need all those frames per second, and as you guys can see here on screen, we're getting around 35 to 40 frames per second. So, first of all, thermal throttling doesn't seem to be affecting performance because obviously if the game's going to be at 90 degrees for an hour, well, we've obviously hit that thermal throttling point, right? And second of all, the frame rate is, you don't get that stuttering. The game doesn't seem to slow down, especially when you're zooming in, zooming out. Like, the gameplay is really nice and smooth. Maybe, you know, graphic-wise, it isn't looking that sharp because resolution is set at 720p, and textures, it's all set at low, so things aren't, like, sharp and, you know, it's not all detailed, right? However, you can play. Like, just bearing in mind the temperature thing, it's actually quite playable. And I did play for about an hour. I only recorded, well, 20 to 30 minutes, you know, just, well, I thought that was more than enough for a YouTube video. But, yeah, like, I really enjoy this game. I consider it lots of fun. And I played it for over an hour. So I didn't really see any stuttering, any slowdown. There were no issues with the graphics, nothing, no glitching going on with textures, where like sometimes that we've seen that in other cases. And the other thing I wanted to mention is RAM. Like if you look at the Wine64 preloader, you can see that it's using about 5.5 gigabytes of RAM. Now that's a lot of RAM, actually, to be honest. It is using a lot of RAM. However, we must keep in mind that obviously this is being emulated through a crossover. But all in all, just let's say taking one step back and actually looking at the performance of this game and how it's actually rendering on the M1 MacBook Pro, I'm amazed. Like, I know there's tons of reviews and videos on this game already out there. However, I wanted to point out that, at least in my opinion, I think that the Windows version emulated on crossover is running slightly better than the actual macOS version that you can buy on Steam. And this is actually, it's kind of weird. One would think that it would be the other way around, but I must say that I haven't purchased the macOS Steam version. I might, just to test them out and maybe compare them side to side. However, as I said earlier, just by checking out Andrew Tsai's video, which was released, I believe, back in February of 2021, and also Mr. Mac Wright's video, they seem to be playing at around 1080p, and frame rate was anywhere between 20 to 30 frames per second. Whereas here in this version, like, frame rate barely goes below 30. There's no stuttering, there's no lag, especially when you're zooming in and zooming out, which is actually something that's very annoying in an RTS, especially simulation type, because you're always zooming in, zooming out, checking out on things. So all in all, I consider this to be something actually, at first something awkward, but second, I don't know, it seems almost as if it were unbelievable, right? And yeah, just keeping all these things in mind. Obviously, the game overheats the system. It does use up a lot of RAM. But even with all these caveats, the game is still running, and it's still in a very much playable manner. So all in all, I'm very amazed, surprised once again by the M1 MacBook Air. Obviously, if you own the M1 MacBook Pro or the M1 Pro Max or the M1 Mac Mini, obviously, you will profit from active cooling, and temperatures won't go up as much. But I don't think that thermal throttling is an issue here. I played for over an hour, and I didn't see any hiccups or no slowdowns, whereas in other games, sometimes you can actually tell when that CPU drops, the temperature drops, then it goes all the way back up again, you gain frame rate, and then that drops again. So yeah, and it's kind of dumb to actually review a game that already has its macOS version. However, at least from my initial findings, it seems to be that at least this game seems to be, at least from my point of view, is running slightly better than the actual macOS version, which I haven't tested, I must say, but just by watching, other YouTubers' videos. So guys, if you haven't played this game and you enjoy RTS games or simulation strategy, I highly recommend this game. It's lots of fun. It's very frustrating too, but I don't know, it's pretty cool. And just enjoy the rest of the video, guys. If you want to, please feel free always to drop any comments or feedback down below, and as usual, have a great one.